Imagine yourself visiting a beach many years ago where the sand stretches out, and you return back years later to see maybe a coconut that's like hanging on the cliffside and the beach is completely gone. Talofa lava, mo lava fisi I vinga mo whawhataile atua mo tatou whatasinga matano whiele nei tai au. O loi no Dexell Aita mo lo plotetsile nei. Whatatau susu enga ni awala whanā atua mo saunga le mu e puipuia mea pia mai lo longa. Talofa lava, good afternoon. First and foremost, I would like to give thanks and praise for the wonderful blessings that we all share today. My name is Dexell Aita, and this is my research, which is about managing the flooding in Apia, Samoa, exploring and weaving traditional methods of Samoa, which is the Salmon culture, with the landscape architecture discipline. So, like many other places in the world, flooding is an increasing disruption to the Samoan development, economy, and ecosystems. In the last decade, disruptive flooding from the three main catchments of Waisingango, Wailima, and Waimoso would wash down large amounts of topsoil, silt, fallen trees, and other debris, and would deposit them all in the Apia Harbour, polluting the Apia Harbour. Destroying homes and infrastructure, heavily impacting the natural flora and fauna. The 2001 flooding caused businesses and schools to close. 5,000 residents were made homeless. 28,000 had no access to clean water, and the damages were estimated to have exceeded 11 million tala, which is equivalent of 6.5 million New Zealand dollars. Seen in the photos are the effects of the flooding from last year, 2018, Cyclone Kita. Restoring the electricity to the areas that are affected alone costed 10 million tala, almost matching the total cost of the flooding in 2011. And this has become an annual event ever since the early 2000s. Under disruption is the Salmon culture. Traditional knowledge, practices, and heritage are already diminishing. Samoans are people of the land and sea. Their relationship to their surrounding is reflected through their crafts, their tattooing, their myths. To enhance and nourish the Fa Samoa, their surrounding environment must first be nourished and nurtured, as this is the foundation of their culture. In response to the annual flooding from the Waisingango River, the UNDP has chosen a typical engineering approach which looks at trying to contain the water. Protecting the villages along the riverside, they look to create retaining walls of 3 meters and stone edging along the riverbank to reduce erosion. This is a common approach, favorable to urban areas because it doesn't require much space, although this does create a lot of disconnect between the people and the water, and also encourages a lot of stronger torrents of water with more debris to end up in the harbour. So the objective of this project is to explore sustainable solutions to design a flood-resilient urban environment for Apia. More specifically, the main driver of this project is to reduce the negative effects of flooding while utilizing certain aspects of the event to better the existing landscape. For the purpose of improving the overall well-being of Apia, the research will also look at boosting the local economy through cultural tourism and introducing landscape architecture as a discipline to Samoa. So these are one of the historical sites you're seeing right now, with the blue building on your right. That's the Mulivai Cathedral Church, which is in a high-risk area vulnerable to flooding. So, what I've been working on in the last 10 months is developing a response to the disruption, trying to disrupting the disruption. The plan is divided into 3 phases. A 5-year plan, that initiates the Caliphate project, what I've named it, Kali meaning accepting or holding, and Vai meaning water. Focusing on creating a base plan that that'll be expended on within the next 2 phases. The 5-year plan, because of the El Nino cycle, which kind of focuses on immediate response to the flooding, introducing some of the wetlands and potential green spaces already existing within the Apia region. So it's basically allocating areas for permanent water, rainwater, and annual rainwater. And one of the main design moves for this one is creating a green buffer zone or green corridor along the river. All right. Addressing some of the disconnection and the lack of cultural admiration in Apia, they also look at introducing a pathway that is a combination of existing infrastructure, roads and routes, and completing the link with proposed links to connect the waterfront further into catchment. And this would provide opportunity for locals and tourists alike to journey through the catchment and visit areas that are significant. Natural hidden gems like waterfalls, significant sites as museums, Robilus Museum, and stuff like that. So a 50-year plan was made in consideration of the lifespan of buildings and infrastructure, where the focus of this phase would be to encourage the local peoples that are living in high-risk areas to move into further catchment, where there's an area prepared ahead of time for them to accommodate for the population shift scheme. So some of these areas from phase 1 would evolve to serve other purposes. Say, for example, the wetlands in phase 1 would be wetlands, and phase 2 would eventually turn into croplands where the local people could plant native species that serve medicinal and traditional purposes to the people. So getting the local community involved in trying to revive some of the traditional knowledge and practices. And then the final phase of the project would be a 100-year plan where the entire CBD would have been shifted and evacuated and left for nature to occupy, returning this piece of land back to nature. The next phase now for my project is to dive in deeper into detail, scaling down into some of these sites and trying to show some of the traditional methods that I've kind of introduced in the whole concept. Because right now you probably can't see any of this indigenous knowledge that I'm talking about popping through this large-scale image. So one of the many difficulties. But yes, thank you very much, and that is me.